Let's start while the people keep joining this and they they join the webinar. So everyone, thank you for joining this webinar. So this is more about drama-based learning can elevate customer care and expectation, and the Verbix.AI is a platform. So today we have some interesting speaker, Alan, along with his team. So let me give you a short introduction of uh, what we are going to do and all. So we are joined by the team at STEP Drama Learning Development. STEP is an award-winning drama-based learning and development organization. They specialize in creating and delivering bespoke learning solutions that support skill development in area of leadership, culture, behavior change, customer service, and more. They recently delivered an all-day workshop at ICMI conference, Orlando, Florida. They will be talking you through an example of workshop today. So a short background of Alan. Uh, like, so Alan, can you give your introduction and we can start from there?
Yeah, but thank you very much, Rahul, and thanks for sharing a bit of background about STEPS and who we are. It's great to be here with you all today. And Rahul, thanks for inviting us to come and share a little bit about how we work using a drama-based learning approach. We had the privilege, as Rahul mentioned there, to deliver some content at a large customer service conference in Orlando back in October of last year. And one of the key things that was surfaced from that conference was there's a lot of tools and support systems to really understand the data and how people are interacting with the customers who are calling to get support, and all of that data can be really useful to really fine tune the skills of the people who run your customer care calls or your centers or anybody who's looking after that customer first experience. But what we found in our conversations while we were at the conference was there's still a gap that can show up between understanding all that wonderful data, like the data that you can get from the Verbix platform in terms of average handling time or CSAT scores or whatever it is that might be useful for you and your organizations. There's a gap sometimes between the understanding of the data that's provided and really how to deliver the message to your teams on how to improve those metrics, how to improve those skills that the data is showing us with those different platforms. So we wanted to join you all today to share a little bit about how we work using a drama-based learning approach so that we could introduce you to the methodology. Maybe you've never come across this type of approach before. So we're real advocates for it. We believe it's a fantastic way to kind of help your teams grow those skills and gain confidence in customer service. Maybe you have experienced this before, so this is a reminder of the great opportunity to get involved in this type of methodology. So before we jump into the content, just a little bit more about STEPS before we get into the drama. As Rahul said, so we are STEPS Learning and Development. My name is Alan. I'm joined by two wonderful colleagues today who will identify themselves by waving. We're here with Nora, who's one of our actor facilitators. Hi, Nora, thanks for being here. And also Mark Schillebeer, who's also one of our actor facilitators. I just want to put all of you at ease. I know we've said drama, we've said acting, we said experiential, and we're not even 5 minutes into the program yet. Nobody in our programs ever has to do any acting. We're not going to ask you to suddenly go into a monologue or feel like you have to move to the music or anything like that. We've got a great team of people who will deliver that work shortly, and I'll explain how it works. But with all of our sessions and all of our learning and in this type of skills development workshops, the best thing it can be is conversational. So what I mean by that is we're going to show you a couple pieces of drama. We want you to reflect on what you see being played out. And then we'll give you an opportunity to respond, share some best practice, reflect on what you've seen, and then use those reflections and that best practice to try and see how we can influence maybe a more supportive conversation when it comes to metrics and encouraging your people in your call centers to do the best that they can. Just a bit more about steps. We do work around the globe, and as Rahul said, we work in leadership, we work in culture, customer service, and we have teams in the US, all throughout India, throughout the UKE and APAC. So yeah, really great to be with you all. I hope we're joined by loads of people from around the globe today as well. So enough about who we are. Why don't we start moving now into some of the content, that drama-based content that we're so well known for. Look, we know with customer care centers, with people who look after your customers, anybody trying to take a large volume of calls and manage large groups of people, it can be really tough, right? You know, some of the call centers that we've worked with and the organizations that we've partnered with in the customer care space, we know that you can have, you know, really, really large teams, and trying to understand the challenges that they face and really encourage them to develop the skills with all the time and all the focus that you have. It can be really tough to, you know, carve out the space for people to actively develop those skills. That we know people are under a lot of pressure to do less with more and to really keep hitting those metrics, and which is all really important, and all that data is very important. But sometimes what we want to build the case for is we have to remember the human-centric approach with any of these developments. So it's great to have all the numbers, but at the end of the day, what we're trying to do in the customer care space is really look after the customers who are calling us, who want to help, who are asking for help in solving their problems. We also want to look after the people who are running our call centers, because those are people too, right? And we want to make sure that, you know, we're really tuning into their strengths, those areas for improvement, and setting them up for success so they can, you know, improve those metrics, but also, you know, get that great customer satisfaction. So what we want to do today is take you through how it can work using a drama-based learning approach, and really specifically connecting it to the large investment you've made, right? If you are partnering with Verbix for, you know, getting those KSIs, that's a really important investment. But how can you leverage even more of that investment and get a higher return on ROI with that, just by really tuning into how people can read those numbers and coach people along the way to improve some of that data, if that's something you're looking to solve for.
Mm-hmm.
So how this is going to work is we're just going to about to go into, we'll take you away from the comfortable worlds that you might be into a fictional world called Infotech Support. This is a fictional company that we've just made up. And we're going to see a scenario play out between two people. One of them is Sam, who is a manager at Infotech. And another one of them is Ria, who's one of the customer care agents at Infotech. And Sam, like a lot of managers, has quite a large team to look after, and has a real responsibility to make sure that he is leveraging the great data that he can get from the dashboard in terms of customer average handling time, CSAT, et cetera, all that great information, and making sure he's really leveraging that to support his teams to deliver the best. And what we're going to ask you to do is simply watch this scenario play out. And then really reflect in terms of your experience. You know, what are the things that maybe stood out for you that Sam is doing that could be helpful, that maybe is not so helpful? Because afterwards, we're going to give you a series of questions just to prompt some conversation in the chat to really hear what you think about how that went. And then ultimately do a little bit of learning about maybe what we could be doing differently to support Sam to really improve these conversations. So I think that's probably enough from me for the time being. So what I'll do now is I will hand over to Sam and to Ria as we watch Sam try to have a conversation about some of the data that he's been reflecting on. So over to you, Sam.
Okay, Ria, are you with me? Ah, there you are. Good. Okay. Listen, I'll be quick. Yeah, just a few things to share. I mean, your QA is down, CSAT's flat, and your HT is up. I mean, if you look at the dashboard, it is pretty clear.
Yeah, I know. I've been trying.
Yeah, but I mean, we rolled out the CX system for a reason, didn't we? To standardize performance. Look, I just need you to get back on target as soon as possible. I mean, we're looking at next week.
Next week?
Yeah, I mean, just follow the recommended script prompts, right? I mean, the system literally tells you what to do.
I do follow it, but some customers
Look,
are
we can't make excuses and we can't have exceptions. You know, if everyone did that, we would never hit ROI. So look, just focus on getting the numbers up. Yeah.
I'll try.
Good. Great. Okay. Well, look, I've got a dash. I've got another call. So yeah, let's speak soon.
Okay, thanks for watching that scenario in the way that you did. Possibly you've been in a conversation similar to that, or you've experienced a conversation similar to that in your time working in the customer service space. So what I'd like to do now is we have some questions that I'd like to run you through. If we could have those questions popped into the chat, please. That would be really helpful. Thank you there. So we've got some questions. So what did Sam do that made improvement maybe less likely in terms of that conversation with Ria? What's Sam not curious about, in your opinion, as you watch that scenario play out? What advice do you have for Sam to support him having a better conversation with Ria to support that development? And what would make Ria feel safe enough to tell the truth in a conversation with Sam? So I'd just like you to reflect on those questions and just start popping some of your thoughts here in the chat, because I want to start exploring, if you came across a conversation like that, or if you've ever experienced one like that, how effective is that type of conversation when we're trying to guide performance while also trying to adhere to the metrics and the data that are being found within the dashboard? I'll give you a minute to think about that.
Yeah, so everyone, I posted a couple of questions from the conversation between Sam and Ria. So feel free to drop your answer based on the question which is dropped in the chat window or a question and answer. So it will be a more interactive. So feel free to, your thoughts, not like something more professional or something, but it's okay to respond to answer of any question. So this webinar will be a more interactive. So we have 1 minute, and hope it's not, you don't have to ask a question, but just answer the question which asked. So feel free to ask and feel free to answer what you learn from the conversation between Sam and Ria. So that's what Alan and team wants to know, so they can define the next conversation or webinar accordingly. So everyone
Thanks,
just
Rahul. And
yeah.
Rahul, if I could jump in while they're having to think about what they want to add to those questions. What was your reflection of that conversation, Rahul? What sort of stood out for you in terms of Sam having that conversation with Ria? And have you ever come across something like that before in your time working in the customer care space? What was your
every day?
Every day.
Every day. So it's more about like the manager is more like, I as a manager always keep pressure to the team to keep like our CSAT or something to be up, right? It's never going down. Even if we do hard work, sometimes it goes down. So it's all about like up and down game. So I know this game so much, like and yeah, this is more interesting topic to everyone can involve. So yeah, but one of the things, like the first question you mentioned, like what did Sam do that made improvement less likely? So that's the interesting question, like the where Sam mentioned, like, yes, follow the recommended script from the system, literally tells you what to do, and then Ria say, oh, I do follow it, we can't make exception. That's what Sam interrupts, and if everyone did that, we did would never hit ROI or something. So in the mindset of the Sam, he's always looking for how to maintain the ROI and all those things. And Ria is something like under pressure of the Sam. That's what my thought is.
Yeah. So of course, as we know within all call centers, it's a high pressured environment, right? It can be emotionally charged. It can be really stressful. And Sam is in this position where he has got to deliver this message and help Ria improve. But it, as we saw in that initial conversation, he, kind of went in data heavy, if you will, right? It was really just focused on, you're not hitting your numbers, you're not hitting your targets. You need to improve this, and it's got to be done next week. So from a managerial perspective, that is an approach you can take, and it sounds like, Rahul, that may be something you've come across before, as you've just shared there with us in your reflections. If I can still keep asking you a couple of questions, Rahul, in terms of the effectiveness of that approach, in your experience, and maybe not necessarily directly to the scene we've just seen, but maybe in your experience of your career, how effective is the approach where you just come in and just use the numbers and hammer that home when trying to support people to improve?
Yeah, so instead of hammering them, I just go into the depth into that specific problem or stuff they are dealing with, and give the suggestion based on my experience. Like, hammering up people will not have solutions to, get the outcome of what they are doing. So instead of hammering, better to provide support while what they are doing, and do not disturb or interrupt on what they are doing, because ultimately they are like deal maker or result generator people. So it's better to do what they're doing, but just give a right direction to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to kind of zoom out for a moment before the exercise, thank you for that thumbs up and acknowledgement. Appreciate it. So one of the things in terms of using the drama-based learning approach, as you can see here, we've seen something that play out that feels very realistic, right? And why that's important from a learning perspective is you start to get your team members, as they see this play out, go, oh my gosh, this happens to me every day. I've been in the same conversations. But they're watching it from an objective place, and they can start to identify the things that maybe aren't working so well, so that we can then take a little bit of time to start to think about, well, what could we do differently to have a more effective conversation when we're looking at the data and we're trying to encourage our teams to improve in certain areas. And as part of any learning environment, what we believe is really useful is creating that bit of conversation piece, like we've shown you with the drama, having a similar conversation to like Rahul and I are having, or having people feed into that and going, well, I feel this way, or I've experienced this, so that we can then really start to think about, well, what would better look like? I think a lot of us can be really good at spotting problems, but then when we say, well, how would we do it differently? Creating this learning space where we can start to surface some of those things that would help be, more effective. We would do that, and then we'll start to move into, how we can see that play out in a more effective way. Did you want to make a contribution there, Rahul? Did I cut you off?
Yeah, just a second. So whoever is joined recently, let me clear. This is more about the drama base. So we have two actors here, Ria and Sam. So they play actual conversation, what they do in the day-to-day activities. So after each drama, you have to just listen this drama carefully, and we will post a question, and based on your that question, once we post the question, you have to give your answer, right? Whatever the answer in your mind, just give the answer, so it will be a more interactive. So you don't have to ask the question, but you have to answer the question which we will going to ask during the conversation. Yes,
Thanks, Rahul. Thanks for bringing people up to speed. And those who just joined us, thanks for jumping into this slightly different way of working. I know it can be a slightly different thing, but that's what we're here to do today, is to try and give you some exposure to different ways where you can really leverage the data that you're getting in terms of how your customer care agents are managing calls, and then use maybe different approaches to help develop those skills where they need those areas for improvement. Let me bring the character of Sam back into the room if we can. Sam,
sure.
I know you've been able to hear Rahul's conversation along with myself. Before we kind of unpack that, how are you feeling about the conversation you had with Ria initially? What was going on for you?
So, I mean, I've been listening to some of what you've been saying, and I think my starting point was to feel a bit defensive, if I'm completely honest. These situations are difficult. We've invested a lot of money in this dashboard, and it's fantastic. It gives us the data that we need. And my intention was to use that data to inform Ria. And yet I found myself kind of struggling with the fact that she was struggling with what I was kind of sharing with her. And, you know, and again, from the conversation, there's this idea that, you know, we have to try and find a different way of doing it. And part of me thought, well, isn't that why we brought this in the first place? So I was kind of struggling with that a bit. The other thing to say is, in my defense, that, you know, I've got 50 people to manage. We are all incredibly busy, and it's very difficult to commit to giving a lot of time and energy to conversations like these all of the time. I mean, it's a challenge, you know, but as Rahul said, you know, this is all about focusing on the ROI. So if there's a better way, a kind of combined way of doing it, I'm all up for kind of learning and understanding how to do that. And, you know, I'd like to hear more about that.
That's a great shout, Sam, and appreciate you, Sam, for, you know, being open to trying new approaches. And, you know, I just want to pick up on the fact that sometimes when we start to kind of have these conversations, it can feel a little defensive, because you're thinking, well, I'm just doing my job the best I can, but actually, you know, let's all take an opportunity to try and see if we can evolve it. Rahul, having heard Sam's reflections there and knowing that he wants to approach this in a little bit of a better way, can you just give him some thoughts on what he could do differently as he moves into the next conversation with Ria to be more supportive? What would be your advice for Sam so that he can be more effective?
Yeah, it's better, like he can do more about the human-centric, you know, coaching conversation. So it would be better if he can do a drama on that things.
Definitely, yeah.
I think the other thing is, reflecting on it now, is when looking back on it, I realize, you know, the energy with which I came to that conversation and my positive effort to get the results we're looking for, the energy I brought, I don't think had the right tone to it. And you know, I acknowledge now I was a bit kind of short. I was rushing to get onto the next call. And I think that actually, by creating the space, breathing a little bit, slowing down, that makes that kind of coaching approach that Rahul was talking about. I'm not going to say it's easier. No, I'm not going to say it's easy. It's easier. I mean, you know, that's what I've got to try and hold on to, I think.
And just before we give you an opportunity to try and try a different approach with Ria, you know, in the first conversation, I think what was standing out for me, Sam, was really the platform became really like a surveillance piece around Ria's performance, right? It was more about, you're not getting this, you're not doing that, rather than thinking about that enablement piece. Because I suspect you want Ria to perform well, right, Sam? You know, I mean, yeah. And, you know, we noticed that Ria kind of tried to speak a few times, but she started to shut down because, as you say, and you've recognized, you were sort of driving those numbers home rather than kind of really tuning in. And as Rahul said, having that sort of human-centric coaching approach. Sam, we've got the magic of theater, so you can now have another conversation with Ria and think about how you've taken that development. And go ahead, Rahul. Did you have a question?
Yeah. So for everyone, let's pay attention on this conversation, and you will have a question shortly after that.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Rahul. Yeah, so we're going to give Sam an opportunity to re-engage with Ria, thinking about all the great coaching that he's just received and the mindset shift that can be helpful to think about, you know, really using the data as a coaching tool rather than a surveillance tool. Sam, can I hand over to you to set the scene and then engage in that conversation again?
Thank you. So let's just assume that we've spent some time really focusing in on what some of those things can be when we talk about, you know, a human-centric coaching conversation. Today, we're not going to go into a great a deal of detail around that, but we would normally spend some time unpicking that and listing that out, and we can share some of those thoughts with you afterwards. But what we want to do is kind of, let's imagine we're forward focusing ourselves for a couple of weeks, and I've really given a bit more consideration to how to have this conversation in the right way to marry the very useful data with what I hope to be a more effective and engaging conversation with her. So I'm going to bring her in. I'm going to have a go. I'm sure it won't be perfect, but let's see if I can do things in a slightly more positive way. Ria, hello. Good to see you. Thank you for, yeah, thanks. And thank you very much for giving me your time. I know how busy things are at the moment. So what I wanted to do is just look at the metrics that we've been gathering, and it's something I'd like to do with you, rather than push all of that data at you, as it's important to me that I get your thoughts on that. Okay. So at the moment, the dashboard is showing QA down and AHT up, and that's something that it's really important that we take a look at that. But before we jump to any fixes, I thought it would be good to understand what's driving that. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, honestly, I'm getting a lot more complex calls and I'm spending more time de-escalating.
Sure, that makes sense. Yeah, and what you're noticing about the moments, what are they in terms of where QA drops? Is it process, knowledge, tools, or is it something else?
Well, the new workflow prompts are helpful, but when the customers get emotional, the conversations are slower. I'm worried that if I follow the prompts, I'll just sound robotic and then they'll get even angrier.
Okay, sure. And it's a difficult balance to get right, isn't it? Okay, well, look, let's take it one step at a time. What would you want to focus on improving first? Is it your speed, your empathy, or resolution?
Oh, definitely resolution, because if I resolve it, then they don't call back.
Oh, great. Okay. So if we optimize for resolution, well, AHT might rise in the short term, but hopefully repeats should drop. So let's agree to take a little bit of time to agree on what good looks like around that. And then what I'd like to do is we'll have some practice.
Practice how?
Okay. Well, there are two ways we can do that. First, we'll role play a tough customer moment so that you can try out a few responses in a safe environment. That's the opportunity. Try out some stuff and it can go wrong, but in this environment, we can feedback on that and learn from it. And then secondly, we'll use the platform insights to spot the turning point. And that's not about judging you, but to help you, I guess, to help build a repeatable approach.
Okay, yeah, that would help.
Good. Okay, but just one more thing before we get into that. What are you going to need from me? What do you need over the next week?
Actually, could I maybe shadow Alex for maybe like 30 minutes on escalations?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great idea. So, okay, let's do that. And what we'll aim to do is check progress as we go through on one behavior. We're not going to just try and do all of the metrics at once. We'll work it through. Sounds great. Well, let's get into the detail.
Great.
Okay, thank you for watching that second conversation play through. So you can see there's quite a big shift there in tone and what they're able to achieve in terms of understanding the challenges that Rhea was facing. So just a couple of things to point out in terms of some learning that we could surface, and this is what we would want to be doing with participants in the customer care agents in your organization to really make sure that the learning is being extrapolated so they can really understand why that shift happened and what was happening and what they could be doing differently. So in this one, I think we saw an increase in trust, that was built by having the conversation with Rhea, right? The first conversation was just a talking at. This was very much a conversation, Sam wanted to understand Rhea's views, and that's a really great way of building trust to make sure you're tuning in to the person that you're coaching or trying to help them develop those skills. What does it look like from their perspective? What are the challenges they're facing? So there's some honest diagnoses going on in there. Still using the dashboard. So, right, that really great detail and information from the investment you're getting with the dashboard on what those metrics are, but digging deeper than just the surface level of playing back those numbers. Right? For Sam, it was the why those numbers were the way they are, the curiosity behind those numbers, and hearing that from Rhea's perspective. So for solutions, right, Sam didn't just say, go away and fix it. Sam said, let's come up with some solutions that we can agree together to really develop the skill and then to get to the numbers they're looking for. We saw there was the skills practice. We can practice a tough conversation. We also saw the suggestion from Rhea around getting some shadowing another member of the team. And I think that's a really important point when we're developing our teams here, is that it doesn't always have to be solutions that come from you. And in fact, pulling solutions from the person you're trying to coach is a much more effective way for them to then go, okay, this is what I think I can do. This is what's within my power, and I'm going to go away and take the initiative to go ahead and put that energy and effort into developing those skills.
It's more about the collaborative efforts.
100%, Rahul. Yeah, exactly. You get that the collaboration there, and then you also could possibly ascertain there from Sam. He was much more calm in this conversation. He was it was much more relaxed, and he probably felt like that manager that Rhea could feel like she can trust and go, okay, Sam is here to be on my side, not somebody who's here to, as we say earlier, bring down that hammer. And then, linking it back to, the dashboards and the information you can get from, the platforms like Verbix, right? Suddenly the data helps you guide that conversation in a more helpful way rather than in a punitive way. So you're using the resources you have to develop that coaching that's really going to help develop and change the numbers that you're looking to change in a collaborative way so that people feel like they can, contribute in the best way. So look, that's a very, very quick experience of how we can use drama-based learning. And we wanted to share that with you because we think that's a really effective way to really use those numbers and that data to support change and support development. Especially if you've got a lot of people that you're looking after, having a different way to approach learning can be really useful and really effective. And we love doing that. So we just want to share that with as many people as we can because some people might not know about it. Just to give you a little bit of sense of where we have used this for success, just a quick intro and a quick insight into a little bit of a case study. So we, a lot of our teams are based over in the UK and in London, and we had the opportunity to partner with the Transport for London system and all of their 26,000 bus drivers to deliver customer service programming to really help them understand what great customer service looked like with every bus journey that people would take in London. Unfortunately, several years ago, they were going through a period of time where people in London just thought the bus drivers, weren't great. They weren't kind. People dreaded getting on the bus because the timetables were late. They sometimes would miss stops. So there was a lot of these things happening that, just made the experience not really a good one for people in London and for a service that everyone sort of, most people in London have to take. It's not exactly the same as challenges that people face in call centers, in terms of the same problems that they're having to deal with in terms of driver safety or timing and scheduling. But what they did want to amplify is it's about the real care of people on the bus and that genuine warmth that in any customer service programming, that's the one thing that we can all provide, no matter where you work and how you focus on customer service. So for TfL, they really, as we've said several times already, they wanted to focus on that human connection, that human-centric notion that everybody that's getting on that bus needs that ride for a reason. And that bus driver is the conduit, not only to, greeting them with a warm welcome, but also getting them there safely and making sure that everything that they, every touch point they have makes it feel like the best customer service. So there was a lot of work that we did, which was very similar to this approach here that we just shared with you a little bit of, but we're really pleased to say that by using a drama-based approach, the impact was incredibly positive. There was a 10% uplift in satisfaction, which was much higher than TfL was actually aiming for. This was much bigger than they were anticipating. And 77% of complaints went down, which was fantastic. And then people reported back in large numbers that the buses felt much more friendly and helpful along the way. And one anecdote that I think is, is the kind of gold dust for all customer service is that notion when other people do the promotion for you. So there's a radio program, one of the morning talk shows here in London, that without any prompting from Transport for London or from Steps, there just happened to be an episode where they were talking about, does anybody else feel that the bus drivers are a lot nicer in London at the moment? What's going on with this really great service and being greeted in a positive way? So, that was, just a quick bit of an insight into how it can work and how it can prove and be done at scale, but also the benefit it has of giving people the opportunity to practice these things through a drama-based learning approach. So I hope that's been helpful for you all as an experience. So Rahul, thank you for letting us walk through that. And I'll hand over to you now for our question and answer period.
Okay, so audience, if anyone has any question, feel free to ask, because this kind of topics or this kind of problem which we are facing every day, right? Because customer is the key for any organization, right? And supporting the customer is in a professional way, or in a way where customer don't feel like we are ignoring him, right? So this is the best way to do a practice in a day-to-day activities. So if anyone has any question, feel free to ask your question in Q&A session, or if you want to speak with these nice guys to ask a question, feel free to ask. So feel free to raise your hand if you want to speak with them, or send a question in the Q&A session. So I have a couple of questions from the team. Is like, how can drama-based learning improve empathy in customer care interaction?
That's a great question, and I love that word empathy that's been noted in that question. So one of the things we have found, and Mark or Nora, if you want to contribute here, please do feel free to bring in. They're now no longer those characters. They are now back to Mark and Nora. So yeah, they're gonna help us with our questionnaire. So thanks for those good scenes, Mark and Nora. But in terms of the empathy, one of the key aspects of using the drama-based learning approach is, I don't want to speak for anybody who was watching that, but hopefully you got like an emotional connection. You might have, as they were going through the scenario, you might have felt it a little bit as it was being played out. That's one of the key hallmarks of any drama-based learning approach, is you will get that emotional connection to the content, because people will, naturally take to what's being played out and feel it. So that feeling is one of the core elements of how you can start to build empathy. Because empathy is a feeling. It's about putting yourself in someone else's shoes and trying to see it through their perspective. And you can't do that objectively. You really have to do that from that emotional connection. So using the drama-based approach can really help kickstart that. And Mark, I see your hand coming up. Did you want to add a bit to that?
Thank you. Yeah, just to build on that, there's something quite important about the way the way that we work, which is about sharing experiences and knowledge with each other. So things that have worked well, experiences that we've had where it doesn't work well, without telling any individual you have to do it one way. So the idea is that you should learn from each other, but ultimately you have to learn what works for you. What does empathy mean for you? What does an appropriate coaching approach mean for you? Because I can't tell you what that is, because it will be different for Rahul than it will be for Nora. And the outcome of what we try and do is to encourage you to think, okay, this is what I need to think about and what I need to do differently, improve on, or actually keep doing, because I know that I do that well, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thanks, Mark.
Perfect. I have one person who wants to talk. So Urvi, I make you.
Okay. Hello, everyone, and it was great meeting you here. And I thoroughly listened both the conversation, and I think I got learning few key points. Like after listening Sam and Ria's conversation, what I learned, trust is always creates honest conversations, and coaching builds capability and confidence, I think so. So also you discuss about the matrix, right? So matrix should guide improvement, not create a fear, I think. And as we discussed about human-centric leadership, so in that same thing, we have to driven a better CX outcomes, I think. And also technology delivers ROI when combined with empathy and effective coaching. So what I thought, the real value of CX platform comes not just from the data, but from how leaders use the data to support, coach, and empower their team. And it was really great session. So I would like to say thank you for arranging this session, and I learned a lot. And I have asked one question, which just you answer that question what I raised in the mind during the session. So thank you so much, guys. And it is great pleasure meeting you in this webinar.
Thank you. That's really
Thank
lovely.
you. That's really great. Is it 𝐒𝐲𝐬𝐬? Is that how I pronounce your name?
Urvi.
𝐒𝐲𝐬𝐬. Thank you. I would just want to ask, you know, in terms of anything that you might be focusing on, have you come across similar situations in your organization, and have you found any ways to kind of support, you know, as you say, looking at that ROI, but that real value of connecting that to the human-centric part?
Yes, sometimes we struggle for the same thing, but at the time we need to approach the customers. We can get the guidance from the higher authority, and they really help. Like, as my manager is always helping, not only for data, for the suggestions, and definitely end of the all the conversation with manager and the customer, find out we will cop up to close the deal.
Fantastic. And one last question. Sorry to keep you on the hot seat. What is it that the manager is doing that makes you really feel like they're giving you that, they're building that empathy and trust for you?
Yeah, the manager is always give us an opportunity to learn new things. They always, sometimes if we do mistakes, they don't overcome on us, like you know, okay, you did wrong thing or something. Sometimes we lose the customer because sometimes we do some little mistakes. At that, on that same stage, they are not shouting on us, and they support us and they guide us, and they keep letting us to learn new things. Sometimes you know, manager approach the company to pay for the new things to learn. So this is very helpful. So that's why I really like your session, and I found it like manager is always a supportive person. It's not, they are not just sharing the data, they supposed to support us, coach us, and empower us.
Fantastic. Thank you for letting me ask you a follow-up question. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much. That's really great meeting you. Thank you.
Perfect. So I think we take one of the last question. So the question is, like, in your experience, which matters more in customer care, empathy, speed, or resolution, and why?
Oh, wow. Good question. Well, it's the right answer is all three of them matter, right? I guess my response would be, I think you have to take each conversation on its own merit, right? Some people might be calling and, you know, are very upset for a legitimate reason. So I think starting with that empathy to really help them understand that you are there to help them solve their problem. It might not necessarily be about speed at that moment in time. So I think having the confidence to use the judgment, understand, you know, how to kind of tune into people's emotional states, and really get to the heart of the matter of what the problem is they're trying to solve for as quickly as possible. I think for me would be the answer, but again, I would say take it case by case. But the more you can kind of just understand there's another person on the end of that, that's probably the best quality answer I can have. Mark, you have a thought?
Yeah, just to give a slightly different answer, maybe an answer to a different question, I don't know. But I think there's something about understanding your own strengths and the areas that you have to develop. And in some ways, it's about making sure that you focus on the ones that you're not instinctively so good at. So in a way, you know, I'm particularly good at dealing with people in a certain way, but my empathy levels might be low. We might want to encourage that person to be aware of that and think about the things that they can do to build that, so you do get that all three that you were talking about, Alan. So it's a slightly different point, but I think it's probably relevant.
And I also would add, I don't think they have to be separate. They don't have to be exclusive, right? So you can be empathetic, but still work at speed and to get to the resolution. So, you know, that's the kind of magic sauce right there, right? If you can do all three of those in an effective way, and exactly building on what Mark said, know where your strengths lie, know where your areas for improvement are, so that you can really then fold that into your growth to address those things.
Just one final point on that, which is again where the value of the drama comes in, because sometimes seeing what you do well play out is as valuable as it is to go, oh, I need to learn that because I'm not very good at it. You know, that positive affirmation can be really helpful, and you can see that through some of the characters' behaviors, and also some of the bad things they do that you recognize in yourself as well can be valuable. So yeah, thank you.
Okay, perfect. So I think we are close to the end of the session. So everyone, Nora, sorry, it's Ria, sorry, Nora, I am confused with the name, and Mark and Alan, it's really interesting session from you. And everyone, thank you for joining this webinar. For any further follow-up question, feel free to reach out to us. So we will going to connect Alan or from his team. And yeah, we will coming up with more exciting webinar in few weeks or a month based on the availability. So thank you, Alan and team, for your time and this new way of learning.
Thanks, Rahul. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks
Have a
very
great
much.
day.